Aloha, everybody. My senior research was about truancy in the Pacific Islands. And to start off, we'll go over some definitions. So truancy, as defined for this survey or for this study, is to miss or skip school or class without parent or teachers knowing. So they don't have an excuse, they just skip class. The next definition is living situation. So this refers to who the student lived with. It can be one parent, two parents, relatives, or on campus for the boarding students. And the other is teacher beliefs, which just refers to whether the student has positive or negative beliefs about their teacher. For past research, some of the variables that have been studied and that have shown to relate to student attendance has to do with family involvement and parental bonding. So there's an association between truancy and low academic performance and how much a student feels bonded to their parent. Other research talks about teacher beliefs. So students that don't perceive adults in their lives, such as teachers, as being trustworthy or caring or things like that, they become more disengaged from school, and that also results in them not wanting to do what the adults ask of them as often. Past research also talks about the gender of the student. So in a lot of developing countries, gender has an impact on how often they go to school. Some girls are asked to stay home to take care of young children. Many schools can be far away from where the students live, and that will keep them home because it can be a dangerous journey. As well as there are no bathroom accommodations for schools in different or for girls in different areas. The importance of this survey, so education is shown to affect developing countries in a big way. So obviously it's very important to improve education, and attendance is related also to the improvement of education. So if students are present and they're engaged in school, then their education will improve. There's also a lot of limited research on the Pacific Islands and truancy in attendance, and that's one reason why this research is also important, because it focuses on areas of the Pacific Islands. The independent variables for this study are living situations. Again, that's one parent, two parents, relatives are on campus, their gender, male or female, and teacher beliefs, whether they're positive or negative. And the dependent variable is truancy, or how often they skip class. My three hypotheses were that living situation, gender, and teacher beliefs would predict truancy. For this study, 2,537 students from 4 different islands in the Pacific, Tonga, Samoa, Fiji, and Kittiwas, were given this survey, the Student Engagement and Attendance in School Survey, which was developed by Dr. John Shute, and included 119 questions, and that involved things such as demographics, what they liked and didn't like about school, how often they skipped class, if they skipped at all, things like that. And for the procedure, this test or this survey was administered by volunteers during a computer class. So they set aside one class period for the students to take this survey, and they were informed by the volunteers that their information, their answers would not be shown to their parents, their teachers, or their principal. Here's a couple examples of the questions that the students were given. Who do they live with? I do not like certain teachers, and there's a Likert scale from I strongly agree to I strongly disagree. And then how many times have you slept school or class this year and last year? And that ranges anywhere from not at all to 15 or more times. Okay, for the results, linear regression was run with a 0.05 alpha level. The predictors were the living situation, gender, and teacher beliefs, and the predicted was truancy. After the statistics were run, it was shown that none of the three hypotheses were significant predictors of truancy. One thing that was interesting from this is that the variable of two parents was the closest to being significant. It was the lowest number, and that's also shown in this graph, which shows the total number of students, the times they slept, and who they lived with. So it was interesting that of the students that didn't sleep at all, a great majority of the students lived with two parents, which is shown in the data. And it's also interesting to see that the students that slept more often, there wasn't a whole lot of variety in who they lived with. It didn't show to be significant. So in further research, things that we could look at that maybe weren't addressed as well in this survey would be a more in-depth survey of what family involvement means, whether they live with 2 parents, 1 parent, relatives. What does it mean for the family to be involved, and how can we measure that and see if that really has an effect on how often the students go to class or how often they skip class. There's also been a positive association between schools and parent collaboration. So I think further research should look more into that and to see what the schools are doing to be more connected with the students' families, as well as looking at the impact of cultural beliefs on education. So what do these cultures think about education compared to other cultures? Is it important? Is it not important? Other factors we could look at is the importance of interventions. So this can be something simple such as a phone call when a student misses class, home visits, different incentives or consequences for the students. That would be something we could look into further at these schools, is what is their system for attendance? How do they track it? What do they do when students miss class? As well as focusing more on teacher behaviors and attitudes. This survey focused a lot on students, but I think further research it would be beneficial to look at how the teacher interacts with the students, how they teach, what are their behaviors, and to see how that affects attendance. A limitation of this survey, I think, is that it does limit, it's from self-report. So although the students were told that the teachers and parents and principals wouldn't see their answers of how often they were truant, there's also, self-report can always be a limitation. And I think a way to fix that would be to collect truancy data from the schools. So instead of relying on maybe the students' answers, to develop a really good attendance program and a way to track it, and to be able to use that data to get the most accurate data that we could, and to see how we can improve attendance and which factors really are significant that may differ from what we looked at in this survey. These are my references for the survey, and that is all.